I've heard a lot of Christians say in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death something like, I disagree with everything that he believed. I disagree with everything that he stood for. But perhaps they're going to pray for the situation or call out the political violence as a moral evil. Now, I'm all for prayer. I'm all for calling out political violence as moral evil. But I seriously doubt that you disagree with Charlie Kirk on everything that he believed. Now, I disagree with Charlie Kirk on some of what he believed. In fact, I made a video just a few weeks ago critiquing Charlie Kirk. He will often say that college is a scam. I'm a college professor, and so I disagreed with some of what he had to say there. And there's some political views that he had that I would disagree with as well. For me, it was very often not what he was saying, but often how he was saying it. He was definitely given to be provocative at times. He was kind of given to the zinger and the going for the soundbite, which honestly is part of his charm, I think. But I think sometimes he was also inflammatory. And of course, I don't like those things. I'm not in support of those things. But with just a dose of charity, trying to be a bit charitable with what he's trying to say, what he ultimately believed, there's a lot to like about Charlie Kirk. The problem with saying that you disagree with literally everything that he said and stood for is that you're really just demonizing him and demonizing his views and demonizing the various people who would be his fans rather than engaging those views. You're just sort of sweeping it all away of saying, look, everything that he stood for, I disagree with. And I kind of think it's a weird sort of virtue signaling, right? To say, well, I'm praying for the situation, I'm praying for the family, but don't worry, I don't identify with him in every way. I disagree with everything he believed. I really think this is part of the problem in our country. We're remaining divided because we think there's just no common ground. There's nothing upon which we can come together on. Because we disagree with everything our enemy believes, whereas the reality is we probably agree on a lot more than we realize. In this video, I'm going to give some things that Charlie Kirk was about that I think we can all get behind. Now, if you like this content, be sure to subscribe and give me any comments. Give me any feedback. I would love to hear those things. All right, here's what I liked about Charlie Kirk. Number one, Charlie Kirk was all about the open dialogue and open conversation. This is kind of what he did. This was kind of his thing, right? He would go to college campuses, which are in many ways a hostile environment for him. I mean, he had a big following and things, but he always had people that would gather who were very worried, very much disagreeing with him. My understanding is those that disagreed often got to go to the front of the line to ask the questions in order to have the dialogue. Now, I'm sure Charlie Kirk sometimes got frustrated, right, didn't probably do so well in the exchange, but there are so many clips, so many exchanges out there online of him being respectful, of him being patient, of him being thoughtful, of him saying that the other person made a really good point and that he was going to think about it, and so on. So he cultivated a kind of open dialogue that I'm just not seeing a lot of out there. Especially, again, in an environment that was not necessarily friendly to his views. College students, grad students, professors, any of those folks could come, find the open mic, and ask him questions and have an open dialogue. Now, one of the interesting things about Charlie Kirk is that my 13-year-old son likes to watch some of his videos. And my mid-70s mom likes to watch some of his videos, right? He was able to kind of cut through a big swath of the population. And I don't get the sense that they liked it for his more inflammatory comments. It was watching the dialogue, watching people, again, he's magnetic, he's charismatic, watching the dialogue that would happen between two people that disagree, oftentimes very radically disagree, but having a thoughtful conversation and kind of just seeing both sides on display. Again, were there zingers? Were there sound bites? Were there slams and so on? Of course there were. But listen, on both sides. But again, sometimes Charlie Kirk was actually pretty impressive in the ways in which he was able to pull, ideas and arguments seemingly out of his hip pocket and bring those to bear on the conversation. As a philosopher, right, it's the dialogue, it's the wrestling, it's the exchange of ideas that's just so very important. And I like that about Charlie Kirk. Second, I really think that his beliefs were grounded in his faith. Now, some are going to disagree with how he kind of took his faith and worked that out into his political ideas. I get that. But I think we should get behind the fact, especially as Christians, right, that it was his faith that informed his views. He talked about faith way too often for that to just be a shtick or a grift of some sort. In fact, there's a clip that's played quite a bit where he's asked, above all things, what do you want to be remembered for? And he kind of jokes, you mean if I die? Now, what's eerie about that is this was recorded just a month or two, I think. I'm not sure exactly what the time of recording was, but it was a very short time before, right, he was actually killed. And I think this seems genuine to me.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if I die?
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
So he above all things, he wants to be known for having courage in his faith. That just doesn't strike me as a shtick or a grift. That strikes me as really where Charlie Kirk was at. And again, I get it. I get that a lot of people think that he landed in a place that was hateful, right? These vile beliefs and even racist beliefs. But the problem, I think, here is that, one, I'm not sure you're listening carefully. I'm not sure you're cutting through the rhetoric. Again, overstatement at times for sure. I don't think Charlie Kirk is that far off from a typical conservative. He might be, again, a little more extreme in some areas than others, but he's not that far off. And so some people are going to say, right, conservatives are hateful, vile, and racist. But now you're calling half the country, you're describing half the country that way. And I think that's as inflammatory as anything that Charlie Kirk has ever said. Now, even if you're not a person of faith, I think there's a way in which the fact that Charlie Kirk was guided by his faith, that it was based on his faith, and that he wanted to have courage in his faith, right, should at least be commendable for a person who wants people of principle. Again, you might disagree with the faith commitments and the principles that are guiding him, but at least he's principled. As opposed to the politicians that are out there that are forming his or her beliefs on the basis of focus groups and just what's popular and what's going to get them elected. I think we are done with that. I mean, that person's not even worth engaging because you're not engaging on the basis of principle. You're just engaging on what they think is popular. So at least Charlie Kirk was principled. I think these are principles of faith. Again, we might disagree where he landed, but we should get behind the fact of people moving in goodwill and good faith on the basis of principles they hold as convictions. And third, he and I would agree that our way out of our cultural chaos, right, in this cultural moment, is to aim at the good. I would put it as that we need to aim at virtue rather than self. Rather than just being so focused on our own self, our own pleasure, because that's the sure way to make ourselves miserable. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know this was one of the things that Charlie Kirk emphasized when he talked to students, but just in watching some of the clips that have been playing all over the place in the wake of his death, There's a speech that he's giving, I think to mostly college students, that seems to be the audience there, where he's calling them to, in a way, abandon the party lifestyle, abandon the sort of just selfish pursuit of our own pleasures. Why? Because that's going to make us miserable, and rather pursue the good, find our purpose in life and pursue those good ends.
I say, oh, just go place another bet on this running back to run 100 yards. Just go to the cannabis dispensary and medicate yourself. That's all a bunch of BS. Go look to your grandfather's generation that stormed Normandy Beach, that built this nation, that started big businesses, that went on adventure. If the most important thing for you is just feeling good, you're going to end up miserable. But if the most important thing is doing good, you will end up purposeful. Purpose will give you happiness. You see, we live in a country where they think that purpose, where they think that happiness is pleasure. We know that purpose is above all of this. Serving God, understanding why we are here, that we are made in His image, that there is a struggle of good versus evil. Every day you get to fight for what is good and what is true and beautiful. So next time when you're on a college campus, and if you want to be a man, this is what you do. If you want to stay a boy, go and do what your other friends do. But men say, you know what? No, I'm actually not going to go hook up with a bunch of girls. I'm going to save myself for marriage. Actually, I'm not going to go do that. But if you want to go be a boy, go do that. It takes no skill and no talent and no self-restraint whatsoever just to follow your flesh. It's time for you guys to stop doing just what feels good all the time. Oh yeah, we're just going to go get, blackout drunk till 2 a.m. and hook up with some stranger. Instead, on a Saturday night, say, you know what? I'm going to hang out with some friends that are not going to drink, are not going to, engage with this stuff. And then maybe on Sunday morning, I'm going to go to church, or I'm going to go to mass, and then I'm going to go work out, and then I'm going to study. Who will be happier? You know I'm right. Who will be happier come 12 high noon on Sunday? The person that went crazy full of regrets, the person that went out late at night, trying to find the next 10-second orgasm, or the person that went to go after something holy, or went after something divine?
And as you see there, right, Charlie Kirk and I would agree that the ultimate good is serving God, is pursuing God. God as the ultimate good. It's ultimately pursuing God that we find genuine happiness, not mere pleasure, but genuine happiness, genuine fulfillment, that we flourish as a human being, right? It's the whole God-shaped hole in our hearts idea that we all have, that can only be filled by God Himself. Or one of my favorite all-time quotes comes from Augustine, where Augustine says, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until we find our rest in you." Right? So powerful. I mean, that's the story of my life. Whenever I've pursued my own selfish ends, right, that's when I've been the most miserable, the most unfulfilled. And it's when I've pursued the good of my kids, of my wife, of my students, of other people, and ultimately pursued God, that I've truly found that rest, truly found that fulfillment, and just peace. Now, a lot of people have called for us to take down the rhetoric, take down the temperature of our debates. We got to stop calling each other Nazis and fascists, right? These that are just so overblown, so overstated. And I think that's what we've got to do. I'm fully on board with that. But even more productive, on my view, is to say that we need to not just take down the rhetoric, but start focusing on how much we agree with each other, how much common ground we actually have, and do that first, right? Let's establish that we're not total enemies here. We're after many of the same things, but we've got some disagreements. Once we've established that common ground and how much we actually agree, then have the spirited debate, have the dialogue. Let's stop demonizing each other, thinking that, oh, this person, I disagree with literally everything that they say. How can you have a productive conversation if that's where we start? we got to start with what we agree on. And if I was in charge of Turning Point USA, and by the way, no one's asking my advice and no one's putting me in charge of Turning Point USA, but what I would do is I would begin to immediately cultivate a team of college debaters, guys like Charlie Kirk that can go onto college campuses, set up the booth, prove me wrong, Turning Point USA, set up the mics, and have more dialogue, more of this, right? We need more of this, not less. I would be funding these events all over the country, perhaps all over the world, where we're doing open mic, open dialogue kinds of conversations all over the place. Now, you're going to have to tell these college debaters that they are taking their own lives in their hands in light of the death of Charlie Kirk, right? But in the name of Charlie Kirk, that there would be more dialogue all over the place. And hey, if you're on the other side, set up your booth and let's have the dialogue. Put the mics out. Let's have open conversation about areas in which we disagree. We need more of this, not less. My sincere hope is that in light of these terrible events of Charlie Kirk's death, in the light of his murder, that this would just cultivate more dialogue, more opportunities for people just who disagree radically, but to sit down and have the conversation. I think that's the way to give this generation hope. Our way forward would be exactly that, more dialogue, and that in a way we can show the world that we can in fact come together. We can come together and talk.